On this episode of the Catholic Echo podcast from the Diocese of Youngstown, brought to you by the annual Diocesan Appeal and Cumulus Radio Youngstown, we're talking about Catholic missions and preserving Catholic artifacts with Bishop David Bonnar, Monsignor Robert Siffrin, and Michael Irwin. Find more about this episode's topic, including articles from the Catholic Echo, at www.catholicecho.org/podcast. And now the host of the Catholic Echo podcast, Dennis Viviano.
Hello and welcome to the Catholic Echo podcast. This week we are talking about the Missionary Cooperative Plan, or MCP for short. And missionaries across the world are sending representatives to each one of our parishes during the next few months. Joining us to talk a little bit more about the Missionary Cooperative Plan is Bishop David Bonnar. Welcome, as always.
Thank you so much, Dennis. It's great to be here.
So the Diocese of Youngstown will have visits from 20 different missionary groups, from Dominicans to Franciscans, and many others visiting. What can you tell us about this annual pilgrimage?
I think the takeaway for me, and this is something that happens in virtually every diocese, is that we have that phrase, it's a small world, it's a small church. Mm-hmm. When we invite these missionaries to come in and to speak to our faithful, these remote places become a lot closer. Mm-hmm. And we get to hear their stories, the stories of their ministry and how they're making a difference in the lives of people. You know, I think it's important to note that these missionaries are not all priests. Mm-hmm. There are brothers, there are sisters that come, and essentially they come into the parish for the weekend. When it is a priest, it's a blessing, because that means oftentimes that the pastor can take a weekend off, a vacation of sorts. And these missionaries come in and they tell their story. And after telling their story, there is a second collection that is taken for the benefit of those missions. And every year, these missionaries apply for the opportunity to do this, and they meet all the standards of our Safe Environment program, and there's always a letter of suitability from their bishop. It's a very well-run machine.
The goal is really to evangelize in lands where the name Jesus is not yet known, which is really fascinating to me, or suppressed, even rebels or governments or hostile mobs. That's just unbelievable that still exists in this day and age.
It's rough out there, and we are blessed here in the United States for the most part. We have a roof over our head, we have water, we have heat or air conditioning, but there are some very difficult situations throughout the world where people are being oppressed, where they're facing just extreme poverty, and where the humanitarian conditions are very, very challenging. And I think it's important for us to hear about this, to know about this, and to do what we can to help these people, because they are our brothers and sisters.
And that's not only poverty, it's disease, literacy as well.
Absolutely. You know, each community or diocese or mission tends to focus on a particular mission. You know, it could be education, it could be healthcare, it could be a mixture of many things, but the needs are great. It's just so important that we do what we can to be of help to them.
And how has the diocese benefited from this? You said there were 2 priests.
We are so blessed because this year we already have welcomed one of these missionaries into our diocese as an extern priest. He'll be here for 5 years. He's from India, Father Marnini. He's absolutely fluent in English. It's impeccable, and he's currently assigned to the cathedral as he gets acclimated. The beauty of it is he has already served in the United States, and the hope is that we can create a pipeline of future priests. And you know, this isn't just saying, hey, come on over and help us. These priests are vetted through psychological testing. There is an advisory board that vets them, interviews them, and then a recommendation is given to me. In August, we'll be welcoming another one of these extern priests, both of whom spent time in our diocese giving these talks. This priest is Father Francis. He is from Africa. And again, his English is impeccable, has many gifts, and I think they're going to greatly enrich our diocese by their presence.
What have you learned from them?
I've learned that, you know, God's call is not limited here in the United States, that God calls beyond the United States, and there are good people everywhere. And what I've particularly been inspired by is their missionary zeal. Pope Francis speaks about a missionary impulse. I'm really inspired because I've met with both of these men prior to them coming. I'm really inspired by their missionary zeal and how much they want to make a difference.
How could folks at home, I guess, find out more information?
We have a mission office, which Father Ed Brins oversees. They can always reach out. There's also the Pontifical Mission Society, which you can go online. And every October, it's really Mission Month. The Church really places before us the whole reality of the missions. There are various missionary outreaches beyond that. You can just simply Google and go online, and there's a lot there to help. But I would just ask, as our faithful listen to these stories, that they do what they can to help the cause, to continue the mission of this great work.
And the familiar slogan, when it comes to missions, some give by going, others go by giving. I think that's a very powerful statement.
We all do our part. And, obviously, some of us are not able to be there. But what we give in terms of our prayers and just our financial aid can make such a difference.
Thank you very much, Bishop Bonnar. When we come back, we'll continue to talk about missions, in particular the Pontifical Mission Societies. A little about the history behind the organization with Msgr Robert Siffrin. Make sure to keep it here on the Catholic Echo Podcast.
Did you know that the Catholic Echo magazine is delivered 10 times per year to 52,000 Catholic households in northeastern Ohio? That's more than 150,000 people. And the Catholic Echo website, catholicecho.org, has been averaging 30,000 views per month since it launched in February 2023. Advertise your business, special event, or service with the Catholic Echo in print or online. Email catholicecho@youngstowndiocese.org. Advertising discounts are available for Catholic institutions as well as for businesses that commit to 5 or 10 issues in a year. Email catholicecho@youngstowndiocese.org or visit the advertising tab at catholicecho.org for more information.
The First Sisters of the Humility of Mary came together in France in 1854. In their rule, approved by the Bishop of Nancy in 1858, the founding sisters gave expression to their faith and their lived experience. The entire community came to the United States of America in 1864, including 9 professed sisters, 2 novices, 3 orphan girls, and Father John Joseph Begel, the spiritual director for the little community, and their ecclesial liaison. In regard to the Eucharist, their rule, translated into English in 1877, clearly stated that they will love and serve Jesus Christ in his real and natural body, that is to say, the Holy Eucharist, in his temples. And they will serve him in his mystic body, their neighbors, who are his members. The personal experiences of the First Sisters of the Humility of Mary was one of wonder and reception of God's gratuitous gift of love in the person of Jesus Christ. This lived experience was also one of meeting Jesus in the sacrament of the Eucharist and of meeting and serving him in the sacrament of their neighbor.
The Catholic Echo podcast will inform and entertain the faithful of the diocese by covering various topics that are relevant in the Church today. Bishop David J. Bonnar begins the podcast with your host, Dennis Biviano, on the topic of the day, and then you'll hear from others with expertise on that topic. You can listen to the Catholic Echo podcast on WHOT-FM 101, WYFM-FM 102.9, WQXK-FM 105.1 on Sundays at 6:30 a.m., or catch it online by going to www.catholicecho.org/podcast. The Catholic Echo podcast is produced by the Communications Department of the Diocese of Youngstown.
When storms hit, we are there to rebuild. As our neighbors age, we lighten their burdens. As our veterans adjust, we ease their transitions. In every part of the country, we are there. We are Catholic Charities. We serve millions each year regardless of their faith. We put food back on tables, unlock doors, and walk together on the road back. Help Catholic Charities serve your neighbors in need. Join us at wearethere.us.
Wondering what happened to timely Catholic news in the Diocese of Youngstown? It's at catholicecho.org. Sign up for the email newsletter while you're there to have Catholic news delivered to your inbox.
Welcome back to the Catholic Echo podcast. I'm joined now by a familiar face here at the Diocese of Youngstown, Msgr. Robert Siffrin, the Vicar of External Affairs and Special Projects. He's the rector of the cathedral, as well as a pastor at 2 parishes. Thank you so much for joining us today, Monsignor.
Happy to be with you.
Today, I'd like to talk with you about the Pontifical Mission Societies. Now, many people across the diocese listening might not be familiar, but to you, what does it mean to be in missions?
Mission has many terms and applications in the ministry of the Church, but this particular definition of mission is the Holy See, the Holy Fathers, concern for those areas of the world where the Church is oftentimes young, growing, but poor and persecuted. So there's certain parts of the world where the dioceses really need the encouragement, the support, the investment of the Church to help them be a local church. There's 1,200 dioceses that are considered missionary territory. And that changes over time as people grow and become stronger. The United States was a pontifical mission until 1903. And we benefited from the propagation of the faith in the 1800s, especially with contributions and prayers that came from people in France. So we were beneficiaries of the pontifical missions then, and we've been a big supporter of it since the 1940s.
We'd like to hear a personal story, if you wouldn't mind, a mission experience during your long career.
I haven't been directly in the missions, but I was friends with Cardinal Tomko, who at the time was in charge of the dicastery for the evangelizations of people, and the missions of the world were under his leadership and control. So I'd often hear so many stories of how being present, accompanying leadership in the missions, providing prayer and support and encouragement that helped the actual functioning of a diocese, actually helping to train seminarians, to help fund and train catechists, because the local church, being poor and young, didn't have the resources to do some of the ministries that were vital to the church.
Now, as you mentioned, more than 1,200 dioceses across Asia, Africa, the Pacific Islands, and in remote regions of Latin America. Why do you think that it's important that these mission dioceses continue to grow?
I think taking the example of St. Paul in his letters shows us that that kind of support and encouragement of our brothers and sisters in these young areas becomes a great source of strength for the church in the future. We need to share the gift that we've been given. It's like the talents in the parable, where if you only had the one talent, didn't share it, didn't use it, it doesn't grow. Same thing's true in the nature of being church. We need to be invested in, concerned about, in prayer and support for our brothers and sisters in those areas where they don't have the resources to do it all by themselves.
Is there advice that you give to young people that are interested in being involved in missions?
We're trying to expand our catechetical tools to help people in religious ed to share with young people how important understanding mission is. The failure to understand us being a mission church, a missionary church, is to lose some of the heart and soul of what it means to be a Catholic. We need to always be concerned about our brothers and sisters everywhere, but especially where our commitment, our prayer, our involvement, our financial support can truly make a difference in the life of the local church.
Is there anything else important to tell folks at home?
Well, every summer we have missionaries come to all of our parishes. Some of them are from these pontifical mission dioceses. Some are part of more well-established missions. But it helps us to remember that the church is growing and strong and understanding where our brothers and sisters are elsewhere, especially those that are poor and persecuted, to have a loving concern, a prayerful engagement, and offering our financial support helps us to know that we're helping the church to grow where it needs help the most.
I imagine they have some great stories, great tales to tell parishioners there. Well, thank you so much for that insight, Monsignor Siffrin. Next, we will check in with folks at the Catholic Echo magazine. They will discuss the Missions Office Restoration Project. Make sure to keep it here. More when the Catholic Echo podcast returns.
We all share the same sun, and we share the same moon, and we share the air that we breathe.
But we all share much more. Every soul at its core knows what every other person hopes and needs.
Every heart wants to grow, every mind needs to know, every voice wants the chance to be heard. Every person who lives shares the hope they can give. Let us all share the joy, share the joy.
Còn chia sẻ hơn thế nữa, mọi trái tim ở trên thế gian cần biết đến mong mỏi như yêu của những người xa.
Every person who lives shares the hope they can give. Let us all share the joy, share the joy. Every heart wants to grow, every mind needs to know, every voice wants a chance to be heard. Every person who lives shares the hope they can give. Let us all share the joy.
By the time we can walk, each of us yearns for the joy that comes from being able to do for ourselves. Around the block or around the world, share the joy. Church World Service.
Did you know that the Catholic Echo magazine is delivered 10 times per year to 52,000 Catholic households in Northeast Ohio? That is more than 150,000 people. And the Catholic Echo website, catholicecho.org, has been averaging 30,000 views per month since it launched in February 2023. Advertise your business, special event, or service with the Catholic Echo in print or online. Email catholicecho@youngstowndiocese.org. Advertising discounts are available for Catholic institutions, as well as for businesses that commit to 5 or 10 issues in a year. Email catholicecho@youngstowndiocese.org or visit the advertising tab at catholicecho.org for more information.
St. Angela Merici founded the Ursuline Sisters in 1535, the fulfillment of God's plan for her to found a company of consecrated virgins who would one day establish schools, orphanages, and dispensaries throughout the world. In the Rule of St. Angela, dictated by St. Angela herself, we discover her great love for and reliance on the Eucharist. St. Angela writes, "For in the Holy Mass are to be found afresh all the merits of the Passion of our Lord, and the greater the attention, faith, and contrition one brings to it, the deeper is one's participation in these blessed merits, and the greater the consolation one receives. Indeed, this will be a communion in spirit." The Ursuline Sisters have served in the Youngstown Diocese since 1874, particularly in the field of Catholic education.
Wondering what happened to timely Catholic news in the Diocese of Youngstown? It's at catholicecho.org. There you'll find recent stories about Catholic life in all 6 counties of the Diocese of Youngstown, plus recent videos, podcasts, and even national and global news. You'll find it all at catholicecho.org under the News tab. Sign up for the email newsletter while you're there to have Catholic news delivered to your inbox.
We put food back on tables, support local workers, unlock doors, and walk together on the road back. Help Catholic charities serve your neighbors in need. Join us at wearethere.us.
Welcome back to the Catholic Echo podcast. I'm Colin Vogt, one of the staff writers here at the Catholic Echo, and today I'm joined by Michael Irwin, who is the lead volunteer for the Office of the Propagation of the Faith and Missions for the Diocese of Youngstown. How are you doing today, Mike?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. For those who don't know, Mike was featured in our May issue story, Artifacts on a Mission by Mary Ellen Pellegrini. was a wonderful article, so I'm so happy that we get to delve a little deeper into that today. So, Mike, why don't you tell me a little bit about the Office of the Propagation of the Faith in Missions?
What our part is, where we get hold of religious artifacts that are no longer needed, and we restore them, and then we find homes for them. And that could be anywhere here in the Youngstown Diocese. It could be as far away as Nigeria.
Mm-hmm.
We want to be sure that these artifacts are not just left in a room somewhere. We want to make sure that they are restored and given a proper home. They deserve that. And people deserve to see these things and have these as part of their lives.
Right, absolutely. And are they coming from churches or from people's homes, or what kind of mix is there from where you're getting these artifacts?
We receive them from churches. Sometimes we'll hear from a church that has found a number of items in their basement or in storage that they may have forgotten that they had. We get calls from families that do not want to just throw these things away or sell them at a garage sale. People seem to understand the importance and the dignity that these items should be treated with. So they reach out to us, and we will pick them up, and we will get them in storage, and then we will start working on restoring.
Yeah, what really stood out to me in this story, in this article, was just the incredible way that this office connects our diocese with parishes or mission churches that are emerging as parishes around the world. You know, it's so easy to kind of forget that we're part of this universal church, and when you hear the statue or the painting or whatever the artifact may be that you saw every day in your grandparents' house could be in a church in Nigeria, it really brings that back into focus for us as Catholics. So it's such a special thing to be able to contribute to and be a part of. It's just really amazing.
It's part of our call to evangelize. And that evangelization isn't just about reaching out to people outside of the church to bring them in, but it's also reaching out to people within our faith and to help enrich their lives.
So what's your role in the office? What exactly do you do there?
Most of my work focuses on restoring statues.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of statues that some are very old, some are not so old, but they have been broken, they've been cracked, they've been moved here, there, or wherever. And what I do is I will take a statue, I will completely clean it, see what work needs to be done, and if I need to resculpt something that's broken off, noses, chins, fingers, folds in the clothes, I will then start filling those parts in, sand them in as if it doesn't look like anything had cracked or broken.
Mm-hmm.
I fill in cracks, and then I go forward with the repainting.
Now, how did you get involved with doing this? Was this like something you always kind of wanted to do, or you just enjoy it, or how did it come about?
I grew up very geeky. I grew up with...
That's not immediately apparent. He's very cool.
Very much, if it had anything to do with superheroes, monsters, robots, or spaceships, I was all over it.
Okay.
And my dad, knowing that, and also sharing some of that interest with me, got me interested into building model kits. So from a very young age, I was building model kits, never stopped. And somehow that has branched out into my appreciation for how well statues are sculpted and the beauty behind them, and how God inspired the artist to sculpt a saint a particular way. And that just got me into offering, I think I can repair this for you. I think I can fix this. And I found out that I could. I didn't know how I could do it, and to this day I'll accept a statue to repair, and not always knowing how I'm going to do it, but I just tell myself it'll happen. And hopefully with the help of St. Joseph, I will be inspired on finding the right way to get something done.
Right. It sounds like that's quite an opportunity for you to kind of deepen your faith, or kind of interact with God in a way, in saying, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to trust that you're going to show me the way.
God gives us senses for a reason, and we have these senses to appreciate the beauty of His gifts to us through the saints, through the Blessed Mother, through Himself. And you always know when you walk into a Catholic church.
Mm-hmm.
You always know when you walk into a home of a Catholic individual. And those statues and the tabernacle and all the beautiful work in the glassware, you're surrounded by it. And whenever I see these things, I always ask, how did the artist do this?
Mm-hmm.
What inspired that artist? I'm just in awe when I see these things, and they should be shared.
I think that's exactly right. That's one of the beautiful things about being Catholic is that we have these beautiful objects and this art. Like you said, you walk into a church and you know it's a Catholic church. It has this divine inspiration behind all the things that you see there, and I think that's really special. And it's like you said, God gave us senses for a reason. We can observe him in the natural world. We can observe him in the creation of an artist. So that's really special. And it's wonderful that you're also contributing to that as well with your skill and your artistry too. What do you find most rewarding about this work?
The challenge that I often am faced with, what's the best way to go about making this like it was? Mm-hmm. So that is the part I enjoy the most. It's that challenge. The second thing I enjoy is from time to time taking the opportunity to add a little bit more to that. For example, whenever I'm given a statue of the Blessed Mother, and she's often standing on the globe, a lot of the older statues have the globe just as a regular flat bluish color. I tend to like to punch that up a little bit and look at actual pictures of how the Earth looks from space and put a little bit more of that detail in there. So when people look at that, they know, okay, she is Queen of the Earth. There's not just a globe there. So I do like to add a few other things to that, and it's very relaxing for me.
Yeah, beautiful. Quick question. What's your favorite, divine-inspired statue or religious kind of art piece, if you have one?
I'm mostly moved by images of the Blessed Mother. We have a standard version in our minds of how the Blessed Mother looks. We see so many of the standard statues of the Blessed Mother we see in people's yards. But it's when I see the Blessed Mother in a different pose, if she's on clouds or if she's holding Jesus. Those are the types of statues, those are the type of images that really inspire me.
Is there a certain type of statue or a certain scene or saint or something like that you tend to work with a lot in this office that you see more often than others?
I've done a lot of repairs with nativity sets, and I have a real strong fondness for nativity sets.
Yeah.
There's quite a bit of repair I've done with those.
All right. Well, thank you, Michael, so much for joining us today. If you'd like some more information about this, you can refer back to our May 2024 issue, Artifacts on a Mission. And if you would like to help with the restoration efforts, you can invite Father Brins to speak with your parish organization, volunteer to collect, organize, take inventory, clean, polish, paint, do carpentry work, sculpt, and more. You can donate religious items that no longer have a place in your home or the home of your family members. You can make a financial contribution, of course. And for any more questions or information, Father Brins can be reached at 330-744-8451, extension 277, or at ebrinz@youngstowndiocese.org. Thank you, Michael. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you for having me.
If you'd like to hear more about this or other topics, please visit catholicecho.org.
The Catholic Echo podcast is a production of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Youngstown. Your host has been Dennis Biviano. Have a blessed day, and may God be with you.